and underway for our 70-plus division.
All right, so our 70-plus division here, we start off with that Echo bike. On each one of the interval sets for our athletes here, we have 25 calories for the men, 15 for the ladies in this first round. When they're done with that, the men will have an 85-pound bar out there on the floor. The ladies will have a 55-pound bar, and they'll be working on those DTs to see how many of those DT cycles they can get. Remember, it's 12 reps on the deadlift, 9 reps on the hang clean, and 6 on the shoulder to overhead.
The Rogue Echo bike. We know how nasty it can get if you get your pacing and your timing wrong. You go a little bit too slow, you're going to be wasting time. So how much is this going to be a component before we get to the barbell cycling, and probably a little bit more on that, keys to success on how you go about doing it?
Well, you got to think about what we are counting. We're not counting your calories on the Echo bike. That's just to get into the work. So do you want to kill yourself and sell your soul on the bike? No. But if you want to maximize as much time as you have for the barbell work, then you need to make sure that you can go quickly. So worry about what counts, and that's going to be your DT. And the DT or not DT, how do you break up DT? When do you decide to break up DT?
I normally go through my deadlifts, and I'll drop 1 rep before the end so I can do my last deadlift into my hang cleans, and I'll probably normally go straight through my hang clean to the shoulder to overhead because I'm strong in that position.
Exactly, and as I think most people that have done DT, they'll think the same way. Now, the interesting thing is that when we break at the interval, on the next interval, you pick up where you left off. So the idea here is, do I break at the normal spots, or do I break to where I want it to end up in the next interval? So when we come back for the 4-minute rounds, do I want to end up with just my shoulder to overhead, or do I want to start at the deadlift so I can immediately start with a rep that counts instead of having to get it up to my shoulders and then have things count?
Betty Nobin, current leader on 435 points, 25 points ahead of Terry Carey in second, and a big gap, 90 points back to Pam Salazar, who is on equal points with Betty Harden. That position, the third place on the podium, is up for grabs in this one. Who wants it? For our man, Thomas Ackerman in the lead, 390 points, 50-point gap between himself and Clark Holland. And back another 15 points to David Hippensteel, who has Doug Worrell hot on his heels, 15 points back. Podium not cemented just yet, but we will be finding out in the next 14 minutes.
2 minutes left to go in this first interval. We'll have a 1-minute break, so it'll be a 1-minute psych you out rest. It's not really a rest. It's you just get to feel the pain that you dealt with, which is what all interval work is. I didn't mean to make you spit your coffee all over your face as you were laughing at that. But there's that leader jersey.
Psych you out rest period.
Right?
Love it.
Working on that deadlift, you can see David Hippensteel right to the right-hand side there. Not using his legs at all, trying to save his legs from the bike. Now, I don't know, my back doesn't necessarily like that, but I understand the idea of using that because your legs just burn when you're on that Echo bike. So both these athletes being very smart about how they decide to use that, use their body to get through these different DT movements.
If you think about the rest time that we were just talking about, where you rest within DT, do you have time to rest? Or is it just hammer down, get a round completed, and keep going?
I think your rest is going to be on the transition. Just like as you were talking, you do 11 deadlifts, right? And that's when you take your rest. So you do your next deadlift before you get into your 9 hang power cleans, and then drop that at 8 so you can clean it up to the shoulder to get that 9th one before you get into your 6. So that'll be the time when you want to transition. But this should be, and you want it to be, a very fast barbell cycle.
Doug Worrell doing himself all the favors for the men's side of competition as we near the end of our first segments. As Bill mentioned, that 1 minute of rest coming shortly. And if you're saving anything for your final event, it is time to empty the tank.
Well, you got about 15 seconds right now. Now, remember, we have 2 more cycles coming through there, but there's your leader, Mary Schwing. Look at the way she's working on those deadlifts, making sure she stands up, leaning back, watching the judge to make sure how many reps you have left with the final 3 seconds.
Currently in 7th position, but could jump herself into 6th or 5th with a good result here.
All right, so we are now into our 1 minute break time. 1 minute break time for our athletes. Okay, guess what? 1 minute to rest. Actually, you only have about 40 seconds now to rest before we get into a 4-minute interval. Calories will come down for our athletes. It'll be 15 for the men, 10 for the women. And whatever you have left on that, we get right back into that DT.
Is the drop in calories equated to enough time? We go from 5 to 4 to 3, obviously, but is that equating
I think it's going to be pretty close.
Relative time?
Yeah, I think it's going to be pretty close. So whatever time you had basically on the DT in the first round, you should have something pretty similar. Now, the difference is going to be how tired are you after working that first 5 minutes?
Very.
It is going to be drastically different. So here we are, starting into our second interval, 4-minute time clock for these athletes. Right there, Mary Swing was first coming into the DT with the highest number of cycles.
She looks like she's on one of those happy bikes. She go down riding around the park.
Now, I understand, maybe she doesn't want to sit down, but look at all that bouncing that she's doing. That's a lot of extra leg work. She is trying to use her body to drop down on the cranks. You can see the difference in the speed of the ladies versus the speed of the men over here. Now, one of the things I think these athletes need to remember is you want to use your legs to the best of your ability. And what that's going to mean is that you want to be sitting upright. Sit up a little bit higher. You don't want to have a deep squat on a cycle of any kind, whether it's a road bike or any sort of bike train or even one of these. You want your leg to be almost extended at the bottom of the stroke on those cranks. They continue where they left off.
And your leader, Mary Schwing, one of the last to get off. Thomas Ackerman in that white leader's jersey. It's going to be tough for Tom Ackerman to lose that jersey. Now that big shrug.
Now look at it. We just talked about this. You're talking about him not wanting to lose his jersey, moving that barbell, but look where Mr. Hippen still is. Way off in the back. Now, we talked earlier in the competition about Pat barbering a particular event.
Maybe.
This may be an opportunity because all you need to do is get through the calories, right? So David Hippenstill last by far to get off the bike. That may be a recovery so that he can come in and blast that last round. I mean, I don't want to say it's a strategy, but it's a bold strategy.
Oh, it is bold. David Hippenstill now back onto the barbell to the back right of your screen in the black. Tom Ackerman continuing. Clark Holland front and center, and Doug Worrell, who is still your leader for the men's division. Mary Schwing still leading the female side of competition, even with a little bit slower Echo bike segments at the start of the second portion of our final event.
Now the way you can kind of count how many rounds these athletes have done is that they're moving into each one of those block segments. So one full cycle, then they'll move you into the next cycle. So you can see whether you've gone all the way through or if you have a finish where you get to the total of 25 of those cycles.
Pick it up, Terry. Pick it up. Pick it up.
Hey, swing right there, working on a shouldered overhead. Now, shouldered overhead means any way. It could be a strict press, it could be a push press, it could be a jerk. Beautiful jerk in the back there by Denise Ristro.
Shrink coming over that finish line. But I think the shoulder overhead movements actually changed. You probably Could even start with a couple of strict press, but then you'll go into push press and then push jerk, maybe a
Right.
split jerk to finish off as fatigue levels increase.
I mean, I would be going into a jerk immediately from that just to save those shoulders. All right, we are on our next 1 minute break for those athletes that did not finish. So we have a 1 minute break here as we get into our final 3 minute segment.
Rest period coming up for our athletes. Just over 30 seconds before we get to the third and final segment. 3 minutes of work. Calories on the Echo Bike. And a decent crowd coming into the San Jose McHenry Center for the third and final day. It is registration day as well for our teenage and adaptive competition. That's starting from tomorrow. And back underway. The final 3 minutes of the competition for our 70-plus division. It is all or nothing.
I mean, this is where you put the pedal to the metal, right? I mean, literally. So 10 calories for the men in this final 3 minute segment, 5 for the ladies, and then we'll get into, again, depending where you find out how you're going to get yourself across that line. Hands in the air for a handful of our athletes. There you see some of the men getting their hands up. Women have their hands up as well. Trying to figure out where they left off on. There we go, some athletes making their way through.
Have you got an ideal place that you want to finish on of either the deadlift, the hang clean, or the jerk?
I mean, ideally, I think I'd want it to end up at the last shoulder to overhead so I can go right into deadlifts. Because I
get
want
some good
every
reps.
single one to count. But I know that my fastest movement are going to be the shoulder to overhead.
The final 3 minutes has now dropped down to the final 90 seconds. Our 70-plus athletes on our women's and our men's side all the way down the far end. Dale Freestone in lane number 1 in the black and green. Gary McKechnie in the blue and the orange, about to finish up. Tom Salazar to the bottom of your screen, and Ken Phillips finishing up. Pascal Grossman in the green and black, 2 athletes in, winning event number 1 on our first day of competition on Tuesday at the SAP Center. Our final 3 men pushing it hard, and they've only got 45 seconds remaining before that final hooter will sound and the end of competition. Pascal Grossman, all done. Irmgard Rita from Austria, and Tom Salazar, all finished up.
We still have two athletes left here on the floor trying to get through their final 5 rounds.
Dale Freestone, proud Aussie, and dad to carry Freestone. Pushed her dad into starting CrossFit, and look where he is after a couple of years. And Daryl Freestone, the bar goes down, and the relief is evident on the face of Daryl Freestone. But a great competition, and the crowd appreciative of our 70-plus Masters division getting the job done. A tough 3 days of competition.